is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash, and we're back with another NFL division prediction episode. Last episode, we took a look at the AFC East. We're going over to the other side, taking a look at the NFC East today. The Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, and Giants. I almost forgot who the Commanders were for a second there. But before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Sunday evening?
I've been doing good. Honestly, we can make the whole episode about this weekend. This has been a crazy weekend.
It has.
I saw Furiosa,
There you go. You were excited for that.
Craziest thing that happened this weekend.
Craziest thing that happened. I was excited to see that, but I ended up being disappointed. Because they have Anya Taylor-Joy as the lead character, Furiosa. But she doesn't come in until the halfway point of the movie. And like the first half of the movie is all like Furiosa as a kid, kind of like prequel, like Anakin as a kid. Like she's about that age.
Oh, interesting.
And they should have just cut all that. Like I don't want to see the kid. They should have just, at one point there's like, they transfer her from one warlord to the other. And I'm like, it should have started right as she got transferred to the other warlord and gone from there, and like just had more of those scenes, because like it's more interesting to watch an adult Furiosa working with Immortan Joe as opposed to her getting like dragged around on the Dementis trips. So the pacing was wrong to me. I didn't love it. It was just
sorry, it wasn't
too much showing, not enough.
I haven't seen it either. I fear, but I'm sorry it wasn't all that you had hoped. I know you were excited to see it, so that's always a little sad when you want to see a movie really bad and it doesn't live up to your.
It still had its moments, which was nice. Like it was a pretty average movie. The first one is just, I think, so good, like such a good action movie, and this one just dragged a bit more. And it's like, the first one just had more juice, and then this one was like, okay, I kind of
And then the second most exciting thing to happen this weekend is I went and saw Matt in Cincinnati.
Yeah. We were playing the new Switch basketball.
Yes. Very fun.
Switch Sports. Yes, it was. And I was running some this morning. I was practicing right now I don't have 3-point range, so I'm working on that.
You were killer in the mid-range, though. You were lights out in the mid-range.
I'm lethal. I'm lethal for mid-range.
You are.
There's no question about that. But I got to be able to expand my game, because sometimes you need the three.
Matt, I meant to ask you. I when I was leaving your house this morning, I walked past that one house with like the frosted garage, the really where we saw the Rover and the Benz last night. They had we're gonna dox this person. No, they had this really beautiful green mirror outside, and I wanted you to go check to see if it's still there. And because I wanted to take it, but it wasn't like out with the trash, so it didn't seem like it was like free to take, you know. But it was like 6 a.m., so I wasn't gonna like knock on their door and ask them if I could have it. So if you
want me to ask if I can have their trash mirror?
It's not trash. It's not by the trash. It's like up against the house. So like,
if it's up against the house, then I'm saying it's theirs. I've never talked to them before in my life, so
yeah. But like, you're moving anyway. You're never gonna see them again.
Right. I didn't get my keys today, and the third most interesting thing to happen this week.
So you guys are chilling, having a good time.
Yeah.
And then you check your phone and see the news. T. Higgins won't have a long-term deal by the deadline.
I know.
It's crazy, man. Oh my God.
We can't pay top 20 wide receivers. What has this country come to? Is my
I know. What has
but on the bright side, I bought a candle called Summer Melon, and it smells amazing, man. It's maybe the best candle of all time.
Summer Melon?
Yeah. It kind of smells like
where'd you get it?
Troy, Ohio. I can't remember the store that we were at, but it was
it like an artesian store, or was it like
everything in Troy is kind of like local homegrown type stuff. It's super cool. It's kind of like a very like cool up and coming cutesy town, but
Watch out for Troy. Troy is up next.
Troy's up
Troy,
next.
Ohio, up
Troy,
next.
Ohio.
Shout
No,
out Troy.
my whole family's from Troy, so that's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Ah,
no,
I
it's just- yeah, but it kind
Anyway.
of smells like what's the old like bubble gum that we used to like? I don't know if everyone chewed it as a kid, but Hubba Bubba. That's kind of what it smells
Okay.
like. The like watermelon Hubba Bubba flavor. That's what it smells like.
All right.
So it cooks.
Well,
No.
yes.
But that's all that
That's
happened.
all that
So
You
might
know
as well
what?
just move on. Should
It's not-
we
it's
address?
it's not all that happened. We Trump got shot at. That
He did.
happened as well. I'm glad we're talking about the NFC East today because like this is like the America of divisions. I feel like you've got the Cowboys being led by an 81-year-old having a questionable offseason. You got the Commanders who recently were exposed as being racist and are trying to rebrand. You've got the Giants who are doing it for TV. And then you got the Eagles, whose head coach, we believe, could be a maniac with no talent other than stirring up drama.
It's just kind of like.
And we're forced to watch them in prime time, having their mid-offs all year.
And it's very divisive.
It's very divisive,
It's very
and it's
divisive.
just mid. So this is really like America's team,
every
but also
team-
America's just whole division. Like
Yeah, and everyone thinks they're the best, but really they're nowhere close.
But yeah, and hopefully no assassination attempts between these teams. But I just feel like this entire division is just marked by like chaos this entire off season.
Really?
Yeah, like all of them, like the Eagles, Commanders, like got left at the altar. The Giants are on Hard Knocks now and like are under the microscope, and like obviously the Cowboys had one of the worst regarded off seasons ever. Like the whole thing just seems to be in complete disarray.
What's the Eagles drama been?
Just Sirianni, I guess. Like they kind of bleed into last season with the playoff collapse, which technically happened this year in 2024. And then like, why was Patricia the head coach? Like, what does Sirianni do? The speculation, that's their chaos, but they're definitely the most normal team right now, I'd say, which is not good.
Low bar, but that's fair. Well, do you want to start with the Eagles, or do you want to start with?
We might as well. We might as well.
Let's start with the Eagles. The big thing is, of course, that they have new coaching coordinators, and with the discussion that we had on an earlier episode talking about like what does Nick Sirianni actually do? I think it's a very important thing that they have like decent coordinators. That's obviously a big part of why they were good in 2022, and having that brain drain hurt them a lot. So going into this year, Matt, how do you feel about them?
I think they're going to be pretty good. It's pretty tight between them and the Cowboys. Their offense should be a lot better, right? With more there, I feel like he's one of those guys that is always kind of blamed a little bit in the last couple of places that he's been at times.
Yeah, definitely with the Cowboys.
But the results have been good. Like the results were good in Dallas. And I think you throw him on an offense that has a quarterback, has great receivers, has a running back, has a great offensive line. It's going to be a big step up from where it was last year. I understand there's some concerns about like how complete Jalen Hurts' game is, and maybe, like losing Jason Kelsey, and the depth at receiver is still really not that great. But overall, even in a disaster last year, the Eagles' offense was really good. And I think it feels like it has nowhere to go but up, and that would make it one of the best offenses in the entire NFL. The real question is the defense for them, which we didn't bring up on our top 10 defenses episode.
No.
But we probably should have given them a passing mention because we brought up, 7 honorable mentions. And I certainly think Fangio here has got a decent amount of stuff to work with. The linebackers still aren't great, but the defensive line has enough juice for me to think that the pass rush could be pretty good. And I like their cornerback additions a decent amount with Mitchell and DeJean, although DeJean might, move around a little bit. We don't know exactly what he's going to play. Both those guys feel like they could take advantage of, Fangio wanting to play a little bit more like cautious type, drop back defense or whatever. So I think I still don't know if I would call them a top 10 defense because there's a lot of question marks. Like the edge rushing, they got Bryce Huff, but we haven't seen him in a big role, or, rookie corners or the linebackers, or exactly how that offense is going to shake out. But I've got them as, even footing to win this division with anybody.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, is they're kind of on even footing. And I look at, where they finished last year was a game behind Dallas. And it was, like you said, Matt, about worst case scenario for how things could have gone. Their offense was 7th in EPA, 6th in the success rate overall. And, in the back half of the year, of course, we talk about how bad their defense was, right there with Seattle for one of the worst in the league. But I think going into this year, there's no reason to believe that they're going to be any worse than they were last year. And if anything, I do think they would be substantially better.
There is one reason I can think of, and that's the loss of Jason Kelce. I think that can't be completely ignored. Like, oh, they're better everywhere. They're not better on their line. And Kelce helped out with the protections for so many years as well. And now that's going to be more on Hurts and more on Kellen Moore, the coordinator, to get all that sorted, which it's not a guarantee that will be a problem, but it's just a change, and for a team that is suffering from the loss of Steichen and just had such a kind of discombobulated year, to act like it'll be completely smoothed out because of Kellen Moore, who has been a little bit controversial in the past. We'll see if everybody's happy with the offense after Kelce leaves. Now they do have the talent to get it done. But even on the defensive side of the ball, like Fangio last year did not do the greatest job of his career, I'd say. And he's kind of been up and down as a coordinator, it feels like, a little bit in his career. But I don't know if up and down is the right word. The tenure in Chicago was great as a coordinator, but then like the defenses in Denver weren't that good. Then he helped out with the Eagles and kind of upped his status, and then got the job with the Miami, and then kind of went back down again. So we'll see what he does back in Philadelphia. But they've swapped out the coaching. I'm a little bit concerned that with Sirianni still at the helm, the vibes could be off, and the synergy. I'm not worried about the talent. I'm worried about like the synergy.
I think that's completely fair. I mean, last year, the synergy was more off for them than any other competitive team. There's not a question about that. They lost games that they should have won, and they got blown out in games that they should have been competitive in. And then they completely crumbled in the playoffs. You're putting a lot of pressure on the coordinators, and you're putting a lot of pressure on young draft picks and just sort of internal development, because it feels like, and maybe this is how you frame it if you're low on the Eagles, feels like they didn't really like add a ridiculous amount of talent compared to what they lost. Kelce, I mean, is a first team All-Pro at his position. He's the best center in the NFL. And like Bryce Huff is good, and their draft picks are good, but those betting on those guys, or like Davis to get significantly better, or the coordinators just kind of come in and fix what was an ugly situation last year, while isn't an unreasonable path to improvement, it's far from a guaranteed one. And on paper, I could see you not saying this probably isn't enough for me to put them over a team like Dallas.
Yeah. I don't think they'll reach the peaks of 2022.
No,
for a long time.
No,
I just don't think.
I mean, that season was such a monolith, right? Like, that's
they were perfect. Basically, they were 15-1. They made it to the Super Bowl and had a fantastic performance. Like, for the Chiefs to beat that team, it was pretty special. But I think we kind of got to forget about that version of the Eagles a little bit, because I just don't think it's coming back without Steichen and Kelsey. I don't. But that's not to say it can't be a good offense and a good defense and a playoff team. I just don't know if they're my bet to make it to the Super Bowl like some of the younger teams are or up and coming teams are.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd pick them to go to the Super Bowl. I have seen some people on Twitter. Oh, you okay over there, Theo?
Yeah, I kicked a laptop stand.
Oh God, Jesus, man, take care of yourself over there.
Scared of loud noises? No, they're not after me. They're not after me.
Now, I've seen some people on Twitter say that they think the Eagles are gonna go to, or some have even said they're gonna win the Super Bowl. But I wouldn't go that far. But I do think they're going to be better than they were last year. I think the defense towards the back half of the year was just a complete disaster. And like a lot of those games where you're like, well, they should have won that one, or they shouldn't have been blown out. That was during that stretch. And in the playoffs, of course, that was also included in there. They're not going to be that bad defensively again. And their offense, I think, is going to be, with the addition of Saquon, I think that's going to be a huge add. They did not have a good running back last year. Like, a lot of the run game relied on Jalen Hurts to a very heavy degree. And that's probably why Jalen got hurt last year. And so you take a little bit of pressure off of him. He's able to stay healthy. The defense, even if it's not top 10, if it's at least league average, that's a substantial improvement. I feel like this is a much better team than it was during that backstretch.
Yeah, and it's good to mention Saquon. We haven't talked about him yet, really. That's a good addition. I think they have the means to recover from the loss of Kelsey because they invested in center. They have Stoutland, right? They're investing in a running back who can make the offensive line's job easier by setting guys up and hitting home runs and stuff like that. They have the receivers on the outside. So it's like the infrastructure may be strong enough, and especially like the commitment to the run game and having a back like Saquon back there, maybe that can ease some of the growing pains if you can just hand it off. And he does a good job, which, we still regard him as a pretty damn good back. So,
right. And even with the loss of Kelsey, the Eagles have been very good at offensive line development in recent years. That I'm not like, it's not nothing, obviously, but I'm not as concerned if it were a team that doesn't have good offensive line development. Like if it were the Giants, or I'm trying to think of like another team that
they've had a plan for Kelsey to come back. Right? Yeah. Well, okay. Well, let me ask you this then. Take last year out of the picture too. If they're not going to be 2022, then they're not going to be 2023. On paper, what do you think of this offense? Receivers? Yeah. Running back? Yeah. Quarterback? Yeah. Offensive line? Yeah. More? Yeah, I think he's pretty good. Like, on paper, this should be one of the best offenses in the NFL. Should it not?
Yep, it should.
Yeah, they should score a lot of points, especially with some teams on their division that don't project to be the best defenses, I'd say.
And they play the NFC South.
Exactly. Oh. Yeah, I think my biggest concern about this offense would be if Lane Johnson gets hurt. Like, he's 34. He's been pretty healthy the last 2 seasons, but the 2 seasons before that, he was banged up. The offensive line was a real problem with his backup in last year, and I think they start to look pretty thin if there were any injuries. It's not going to be as strong as it was in the past. But outside of that, you're right, Matt. Like, the starting, 11? I mean, it's pretty stacked. So I think they'll still make the playoffs.
The problem, well, with the Eagles, it feels like second place in this division is very, very likely to be the 5 seed with how just the schedules are shaped up here. The NFC South maybe can be a little bit better than it was last year, but I think still projects to suck pretty bad, to be completely honest with you. So the fact that they're the division that gets that, and then on top of that, the Cowboys and Eagles both get to play Washington and the Giants, neither of which really have moved the needle. We'll get into that. It's like there's just so many good games on this schedule that I think we could see possibly a 13 and a 12 win team be the 1 and the 2 here. I don't think that's unreasonable at all. Having a weak schedule or an easy schedule matters a little bit more. I was saying it last year, and I think I still stand by it. It matters a little bit more than people think. or like we take that into account for college football, but not as much the pros. And that's because it's not nearly as big of a difference in the pros, but it still matters. So I think Philadelphia, I think their defense will probably not be dominant because the linebackers seem like an obvious weakness and because, young corners and edge questions, but it's very far from like, where are the good players or where is the possibility? Like, where's the path to success? Yeah. And the offense should be dominant. So I have them as like a 12-win team.
And that means you probably have them number 1 in this division, huh?
I have them number 2 in this division.
Wow. Okay.
I have them number 1.
Oh, I got to make a judgment call. I'll put them number. I honestly didn't think about it. Get back to me after we talk about the Cowboys.
Do you want to just go to them now? Like,
let's go to the Cowboys right this moment.
Right,
Dallas's defense, I'm a lot more confident is going to be pretty good. That's the difference between the Eagles and Dallas. And I guess you could make the argument that the Eagles' offense was still somehow good last year, and that now it should be like even way crazy better. Like I see that path, or like maybe you think the Eagles' defense will be like much improved and way better, and it'll be borderline top 10, and that'll be like I see the path of the Eagles getting there. And anytime we're predicting teams within one game, it's the NFL. You know how it goes.
Yes.
But Dallas's defense is going to be very, very good in the regular season. We gave them crap on the defenses episode because we said the linebackers tend not to hold up and their run defense can get exposed. And they've got these corners who love to gamble. And in a playoff series, we question whether or not that's going to hold up 4 times in a row. Doesn't need to in the regular season. They might have a bad game or two. There might be a good offense or two that gets them. But when I look at this schedule and I say these teams are going to have to deal with, or these offenses that they're going to play are going to have to deal with Micah Parsons and this amazing pass rush with cornerbacks that are going to take advantage of every single mistake. I think statistically they're going to be amazing in the regular season. And then on the other end, I think that Dak, you question what he does in the playoffs, fine. But when we're predicting the regular season, he's been incredibly good, MVP level player. CeeDee Lamb is at the absolute top of his game. I think this offense still easily going to produce. And I have them like just ahead of the Eagles because of that.
It's so funny. Every player you just mentioned, like the MVP, potentially the offensive player of the year, the defensive player of the year. It's so crazy that none of them have contracts right now. None of them. 0 for 3.
Wow.
0 for 3.
I honestly didn't know that.
Micah doesn't have one. CD doesn't have one. Dak is expiring. Jerry Jones is asleep at the wheel this offseason. He is he's washed, man. I'm sorry. You don't have any of these guys under contract. You let Tyron Smith walk and you have none of these guys under contract. You what?
Now,
you have no running back and you have none of these guys under contract. Although I will be drafting Rico Dowdle in fantasy because he did me well last year.
But he did feast.
You have Zeke at running back. Like he's one big gain in like 5 years. Like and you don't have anybody signed that you're good players. Like not one. Like what are you doing?
First off, we're not blaming Buckeye legend here, by the way. So find something else about this offense to complain about other than Ezekiel Elliott. Second off, the Smith loss, and again, I'm just going off ESPN depth chart here, but like if Guyton starts game 1, that is going to be like really, really bad, I think.
Who did they play week 1? Myles Garrett, they play the Browns week 1.
Cowboys Browns week 1 will be... We will be there, dude. That might be game of the week, man.
Wait, where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
It's, dude, Dak's season is in peril immediately. He's in peril immediately. It's in Cleveland.
Bro. I'm making some calls real quick.
Well, when is it? It's a 2:00 game. Well, I'll be in Brazil.
What?
So I can't. No, I'm kidding. The Packers are playing in Brazil. I did.
Anyway, I do think
I'll be in Brazil maybe getting held hostage because I wore green. Calling in from like a prison cell.
True.
I do think it's very fair to have some concerns about that offensive line then. I mean, Smith to Guyton might be a humongous drop, and maybe you just have more faith in the Eagles offense to be really great. I don't know. I'm kind of questioning my Cowboys pick straight up. Like Guyton, I thought Guyton was like really, really rough. And like he is a project guy. And I don't think that's a hot take to say. I mean, you go read scouting reports about him from anybody. It's like, yeah, he's got great tools, but he is not like actually winning consistently. And it's like, okay, well, you're going up against Myles Garrett week 1. If that's how things shake out, it's going to be ugly, man. Like I think that's a humongous loss. Now, I think Dak is still great and can make do with a bad offensive line and can handle pressure well, but pressure is pressure. Like you're getting worse results with anybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Here's the game plan. It's a tight end, and then it's Guyton. Slide to that side every time, Tyler Smith, and then that's what you sign Zeke for chip help, quadruple team him, survive week 1.
Oh my
beat
God,
the Browns.
You're running like max protect.
Just to that side.
You're running max protect, and the Browns are going to rush 4 and still win.
Right, that's all fun and games, and then he just leads on a stunt and like bowls over whoever the center is at this point.
They're like, oh, they want to use 3 guys to block Garrett. All right, we're just going to line him up on the left
It's
guard.
going to be those 3 guys versus Dalvin Tomlinson soon. Fuck.
Yeah, man, it's going to be over.
Brock Hoffman is their center. No, Guyton might not even see Garrett. He's going to be in the A gap the whole game.
If I think the Cowboys are still going to have a good year. The reason I'm taking the Eagles over them is almost exclusively
you love Jalen Hurts.
No, man, I might be wearing the jersey. I think the matchups between Philly and Dallas, I think Philly could sweep them pretty easily. They just match up too well. Like Dallas, we're talking about their run defense is terrible. Their offensive line could be a disaster. Well, the Eagles' defensive line looks to be really good, and they were a top 5 rushing offense last year that added Saquon Barkley. Yeah, I don't like. What's Dallas gonna do? It's like, oh well, their corners are so good and their pass rush is so gonna be good. But like, if they just don't throw the ball, like, what are you gonna do? And if the only passes they make are like slants to AJ Brown.
I mean, they did beat the Eagles 33-13 last time they played.
Did, but that was in the back half of the year during their slump. All right, again, we're wiping that off the table. That doesn't exist anymore.
I mean, the good offense. I mean, the Dallas defense does disappear against good offenses historically. So if like the Eagles are actually locked in, the Cowboys might be frauds, but their defense does have like LeBron James, and it's kind of like LeBron James surrounded by the role players, right? Like
I let me check the schedule. Yeah, they're not the final game. Week 17 is in Philly. Dallas Eagles in Philly. I think that game's for the division. And I think the Eagles win it. Just running the rock.
The Eagles' rushing defense ranked worse than the Cowboys significantly. The Cowboys' rushing defense didn't even rank that bad last year.
Zeke versus Saquon, though.
How many times did the Cowboys run the ball last year? And how much are they going to run this year?
I mean, they had to be bottom 5 in run rate.
The Eagles' defense was terrible in the back half of the year. Like, that is no doubt. Like, again, it was them and Seattle were the 2 worst defenses in football.
Like I think the Cowboys' rushing defense can get exposed, but I think just assuming that the Eagles won't have to do anything but run is probably a little bit too rich for me.
No, it's not like exclusively that, but I think it's a mismatch.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't. I'll be excited to see the Cowboys. They got Micah. I'm excited to see Bland and Diggs. I really am. I think those 2 combined. Where do you throw the football? You've got Caden Carson in the slot. I actually think he was a good pick in the 5th round. If you want like kind of a sleeper to watch this year, he's going to see a ton of targets. And if he could hold up more than Jordan Lewis, like that could be very big. You know, Mozzie Smith's changed role. I don't think anyone's going to walk all over Dallas as long as they avoid the Shanahans, and I don't know if the Eagles will or not, I guess, but I like the defense Dak and CD still elite. I guess again, this is another team where I'm worried about the synergy and like if it.
No, I actually like
think if none of them have deals,
of a concern, man.
If none of them have any deals, and like Jerry Jones has been like, people ask him about it, right? Like the press is like, why not have these guys signed? And he says stuff like, well, you can't live in fear. A comet could hit us and we could all die. Like he said that this offseason. And if you're a guy like not being paid and like this old ass owner is like ranting like this, you got to be like, well, a little bit suspicious about the state of the franchise, right? Like how are none of us paid? If things start going badly, I could really see that situation getting like ugly. Because right now it seems like Jerry Jones is holding the money over these guys for motivation, and they might just say like "fuck you" at any point.
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of that, man. I'm not a big McCarthy believer either.
And they didn't do anything to like
the offensive line, like
on
the offensive line on paper is pretty rough. Blaiden, I won't be swayed by you. You were picking Jalen Hurts no matter what.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
It's true.
That's not true.
There's some truth to it.
Let us know in the comments if that's true.
And shout out to you. And I don't think it's crazy to pick the Eagles. Like it's neck and neck. But I mean, if outside of CD and Dak, the offense is just like overall pretty rough. Like the receiver depth also. If you're a big Tolbert believer, maybe, but Cooks wasn't good last year and is only getting older, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, I don't know who has worse problems between the Cowboys and Eagles. I think that they're still the two clear favorites in the division, but I wonder if that Week 17 game for the division isn't. I just don't know if I see it being like that 13-4 versus 14 and I don't know.
Dude,
I don't know.
Maybe then the pick is the Eagles for the division, because I'm sorry, there is no way that they do not rack up some serious wins against very weak competition when they can run the ball and they're so reliable. Like even last year, that offense was great and it will be great again. There is no question about that, I think, unless something happens, right? That rushing game should be amazing. And they've got great receivers and great weapons overall. Their depth isn't good, but their depth isn't good, and they've got the second receiver in a way that Dallas is like, their depth isn't good, and they don't.
Yeah.
Although CD is about as good as you can possibly be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you just have faith in like what is the Eagles winning like 9 games look like to you?
Injuries, maybe.
Man, I don't know. 9 is. That doesn't feel right either.
Then like 10 or like even 11.
They won 11 last year, so
I guess it would be just the corners don't pan out. I guess it looks like last year where like the linebackers are struggling, the back end is struggling, big plays are getting hit, like, and then the offense just doesn't quite have the right feel of things without Kelsey. And they just, again, we're talking about them like they lose some games they shouldn't have blown. They did this and that. But even then, like, and they don't get off to like an 11-0 start or something like that. Like it's
right.
Maybe they lose some that they won last year because they had a good record, but it was clear that they weren't. It was clear they weren't quite as good.
They went Dallas and then Chiefs and then Bills at the very end of the of like that streak where they were still pretty good, and they won all of those games by 1 score. And it was, and they kept they almost lost the Bills game, and they all like it was right down to the wire. And people were kind of like eyeballing them, like, "Hey, you know, like, well, are they legit and just winning ugly?" And then they went up against the 49ers and they got smacked, and then they basically were terrible from then on out.
Yeah, I guess the path is like the defensive issues were more of a roster thing than we think, and then losing Kelsey hurts the offense big time, and then they lose more close games or something. That's what like the path to, and even then that's like the path to like a 9-win winning record.
But like I don't even know if the defense looks bad on paper. It's just like
This
the
is
linebackers, but even they added Devin White this offseason, which is probably an upgrade over. I don't even remember who they had last year.
Oh, it's definitely what did they? Was it Morrow? Like they were having a horrible playoffs.
Yeah, it was really bad.
I'm looking at their depth chart, and Oren Burks is not far away from seeing time, which makes
Surely
me
they have linebackers good enough, like the 49ers did, to go.
Stay hot legend Kobe Dean.
Hey,
you're up.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's gonna have a breakout year, now's the time.
I don't know. I just think I don't think everything is going to break the Eagles' way. But when I look at their problems, do you believe in the coordinators? That was one of the problems. Do you just straight up Fangio and more? Yeah, I feel like that's pretty decent. I'm not going to say anything's a guarantee, but that feels like pretty solid. Mm-hmm. Do you think they'll be able to replace Kelsey? Not a guarantee, but it feels like their plan is pretty solid. Edge rushers, I don't think it's great, but they do have Huff is not a bad attempt at bringing somebody else in. And their secondary, it's okay, well, yeah, it was a problem, but the guys they brought in, I think they'll probably do a pretty decent job. I wasn't the highest on Mitchell and DeJean.
Yeah, but their offseason was better than the Cowboys.
And then,
so
and then
maybe
I
I'll
look
go
at Dallas, and then I look at Dallas. I'm like, okay, well, what are their problems? Well, first off, we don't really like their coaching. Do you believe in McCarthy? It's not really. Their wide receiver depth. Do you believe in their depth? They've made some move. It's no, they kind of didn't do anything. Their offensive line, do you believe in Guyton as a week one starter? Do you believe they're replacing Swift? Not at all, man. Maybe Guyton can be good long term. I'm not saying the tools aren't there, but I think that's pretty tough. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that their linebacker room is it because they didn't really make any big moves there. Their defense, I think, still should overall be very good. It should, and it will. But I could see sort of just the on paperness of it being good collapsing the same way that the Eagles did last year, and the internal vibes definitely feel like they're headed in the wrong direction in Dallas. But I still think here's the problem. I still think their defense is going to make big plays. And I still think with at least Dak and CD, your offense should still be really good. I don't think Smith is quite the level of loss where it's okay, the offense is going to suck now. But there's definitely a lot of holes there.
Yeah, it's a tough call. The Eagles, I think, had the better offseason. I trust Roseman over the Jones family at this point. But I trust the Cowboys defense to be top 10, and I don't trust the Eagles defense to be top 10 as much. And then the offenses are both high powered. So it's where does that leave you? I'll say Eagles 1, Cowboys 2. I still think in the NFC, they should be talented enough to make the playoffs. But again, I could see it going either way. But we should move on to the other two teams because we're detailing all these problems and why these mighty NFC contenders could be weak. But we're also not very concerned about anybody in the division actually seizing the moment. Why is that? Well, let's start with the New York Giants.
Let's start with the New York Giants. Because they stink, man. They stunk last year, and they're probably going to stink again. If you've been watching the Hard Knocks on the Giants, you've realized that these guys just don't know what they're doing. No, I mean maybe they do.
I don't think they do, honestly. I really am not convinced.
I was gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, but
I just feel like they've been spinning their tires. They've had this roster for a while now, but this is the offseason where it feels like the focus is we're going to make it our roster. Goodbye, Saquon. Goodbye, Xavier McKinney. Hello, Brian Burns, and hello, Malik Neighbors. And it just kind of feels like, okay, with the talent out and the talent in, it kind of feels like you stayed the same. And they let Leonard Williams go instead of paying him in the middle of last season. And now Brian Burns is there. And I feel like we're having the same discussion as last year where it's we like their defensive line a lot, but what about the secondary? What about Daniel Jones? Yeah. And what about the offensive line? And I don't know. It just feels like they're the same. And the Burns move just didn't make much sense to me because not only did they decide Leonard Williams was not worthy enough to pay, so they sent him away. When they made the Burns deal, you can see in the show, it's at the same time they're trying to trade up for Drake May. Like,
Yeah.
I don't get that. Like, why are you trying to trade up to number 3 with the Patriots? And then like in the middle of doing that, he's also talking to his best friend in the GM world, the Panthers guy, and they came up together. And like they're palling around, and he learns Burns is available for trade, and then like makes that his main focus before the draft. Like they traded a 2nd-round pick. I just don't know if their priorities were in the right place this offseason. And
Yeah, I mean, I've seen numerous times where they're having discussions, and it always circles back to, well, we paid Daniel Jones, we've got to see what we've got in this guy, right? You don't want to abandon him, and I'm like,
you can though. Like he's not.
There's a lot of sunk cost fallacy going on here with Daniel Jones, and he's just not that good, man. I struggle to see the path for this offense being very good this year. I guess they did have some passing success last year, but I feel like a lot of that was with Tyrod, wasn't it? So maybe Neighbors has a solid year. You know, we've seen plenty of receivers have good 1,000, 11, 1,200 yard seasons with bad quarterback play, but I think overall the offense is going to be pretty bad. The defensive line, I think, is going to be pretty good, and I think Banks could be solid.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, like, there's just not a lot to be excited about.
And at this point, they've thrown so many resources into the receiver room, and it's like it's never gotten better as long as Daniel Jones has been the quarterback. Like, let's give Kenny Golladay a deal. It's horrible. Let's give Darren Waller a deal. It's horrible. Let's draft Kadarius Toney in the 1st round. It's horrible. Now it's like Malik Neighbors is by far the best player they have added.
Yes.
But like there's been a lot that has changed around Daniel Jones, and he has remained mid.
Mid is generous, but yeah. The receiving core right now stands as Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, Allen Robinson, Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to overcomplicate this. I think they'll probably be a touch better. Malik Neighbors, I think, will be awesome from day one. I think he's going to be incredibly dope. And Brian Burns, I question what exactly the game plan is there. And I haven't watched the Hard Knocks thing, but if you're saying that they sort of just like spur of the moment decided to make a move like that, then I really question what exactly their game plan was.
It really feels like that when you watch the show. Like he knows the Panthers guy, and he is chumming with him, right? And then they talk about the Burns thing, and it like goes great right away. They connect, like they know each other. And then when they talk to the Patriots for the trade up or like plant that seed, he has like no. He has to like walk all the way to the other side of the building and just like leave a quick message and then leave. Like it just feels like he felt in that moment like a deal with the Patriots couldn't, like he just didn't have the firepower for it, but he did have the firepower to make a trade for the Panthers because it's like he had that connection. And in like,
yeah,
I don't know. I feel like that's kind of, you needed that 2nd-round pick to go get May, like, right? Maybe not, but targeting him and trading for Burns, I just didn't like that.
Yeah. So but the thing I was getting to is like Burns is still a good player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think even if we disagree with some of their process, or like we kind of just don't think they did enough, or we don't see the long-term vision here, I do think there's a few talent adds that make me think like, okay, that's a pretty big difference. Mainly Neighbors and Burns, and I'm really high on Neighbors. And I think it makes their receiving core, pushing everybody down one, a little bit more reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But I still don't think their offensive line is that good.
No.
I don't think their receiving core is like particularly strong. And even if you think Neighbors is going to be awesome, and if he's like not immediately great, then it's just really bad. And Daniel Jones, I understand he can like sometimes, like if you make things easy, really is not that great either.
I mean, even in the playoff year, he threw 15 touchdowns before it was a 15 touchdown season that got him that deal.
And then, I mean, defensively, I still think their secondary is just kind of talent lacking. You can like Banks, fair enough.
Yeah.
And I think the front seven is like still really not complete, even if you like Dexter Lawrence and you like Brian Burns. And I think Dexter Lawrence is pretty clearly like a special one of one overcoming superstar where like you can think some of the guys around him are not that good and still love that unit because he's that good. Right. But just on paper, this team is just did not get better enough, is not that good.
Yeah,
and it wasn't good last year. So I don't think it's crazy to be like they're probably not going to be significantly better. Maybe a couple games, easy schedule, and there's a couple of nice additions and a healthy Daniel Jones. I'd probably take over their quarterback situation last year, but yeah, I'm just not seeing the path here to them being competitive, and I'm not seeing the path with this entire build they've got going on. Realistically, they've got to start that 11 win season they had messed with their minds, messed with like they got too far ahead of schedule with the team that really wasn't like that great because they won a bunch of one score games. Like that's the reality of that, man.
Yeah, it just feels like they're just screwed, and you can't really acknowledge that in the building. Like Daniel Jones is just not that guy. Even in like they mentioned the Miami game and how like no one can win in that situation. They had undrafted free agents everywhere is what they were saying. And then you go watch the Miami game and you can tell when like a good quarterback is doing work with bad weapons. Like it looks different than when a bad quarterback is trying to do work with bad weapons. Like the only thing that Daniel Jones can do in that game is like hit slants. And that's all they try to do. Like there is no ambition beyond that. And yes, that's partly an indictment on the supporting cast of Jones, but it's also an indictment on Jones himself. Like he's not that accurate. He's pretty uncoordinated, trying things out of structure. Like he can run, but he's not really that like agile, like make you miss, like pocket management guru. Like his internal clock is kind of bad. So he just doesn't have the traits to like get it done at all. And yet they're stuck with him. And going into last year, they had Leonard Williams and Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley.
That's true.
This year, they have none of those guys. Yes, they have Malik Neighbors. They have Brian Burns. But, like, you lost a lot of talent, man. And you gained a lot of it, too. But you're spinning your wheels, it feels like. So I think – and they were fake good, like you said, in 2022. They were fake good. So why are they good now? They're just spinning their wheels in the badness.
But despite being as bad as they were last year, they were third in this division. I think they'll be third again.
Oh, God. I'm going to do the same thing I did at the top. Let's talk about the Commanders, and then I'll decide.
I also have the Giants at third.
The Commanders, like as bad as we just riffed on how bad the Giants are, the Commanders are worse, man. Their defense is horrible. Oh, my God. Outside of the interior defensive line of Allen and Payne, nothing.
And Newton.
Yes, and Newton. That's true. They did add Newton.
That is so funny that they drafted another defensive tackle. I like the pick. Like, I'm a BPA guy. And
Bear front, nothing but please, Newton.
They did add Frankie Louvu. Let's not.
Now, hold on. That actually was a good signing.
That was a good signing. But the other guy they have there is Bobby Wagner. And then you look at Forbes was terrible last year. He's projected to start.
Yeah, he will. I mean, like things happened to him. They got Jeremy Chin as well. Yeah, but they lost their safety. To Los Angeles.
I'm blanking on his name too. Someone will think of it. I'm
not
sure.
Forrest, right?
No. Forrest is still there. The other one, Curl.
Yes,
Curl. Right.
That's a big loss.
That is.
I don't know. They added a lot of free agents.
Right, name the good units.
The front four. I mean, it could be good with Newton, Allen, Payne. Dorrance Armstrong wasn't a bad signing. Like Louvu's a good pass rusher. Like I could see that they have Dan Quinn there. Like I could see them getting after the quarterback at an above average rate. I could see that.
Okay.
But the secondary.
Oh my God.
But their actual edge rushers are really bad. Their secondary is like not probably going to work. They have, this is one of like the all-time like name soup rosters I've seen in a minute, man. I mean, Go if you're listening, go look at who is on this team, bro. It's absolutely
awesome.
everybody. Bobby Wagner, totally forgot about that dude. Eckler's here. Oh,
Mariota.
All right, Mariota's back up. Oh yeah, dude.
I was just talking about this. I was at lunch with my family yesterday in Troy, Ohio, and they're like, what are your thoughts on the quarterbacks and from this class, because they're all sports fans and one of them's like a sports broadcaster. And I'm like, I only like 2 of them. They're like, you don't like Daniels? I'm like, no. And they're like, wait, who's his backup? And is he even going to start? I'm like, I don't even know who his backup is.
He's starting.
Yeah, it's Mariota. He's starting, brother. Yeah.
They got Dax Milnett still hanging on to the roster.
Bro, this is the thing. I'm looking at the receivers, and I'm like, Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson. Cool. After that,
You love Luke McCaffrey and Dax Milne.
I do love Luke. Luke McCaffrey and Dax Milne will feed families this year. That is facts.
We haven't even mentioned Zach Ertz being their tight end.
I think I mentioned it briefly, but dude, it's really, and I mean Chris Paul splitting time between San Antonio and Washington.
He always makes teams better, I guess.
I just think like unit by unit, they're pretty much bad, like dude, almost everywhere, man.
And you think about all the players we just named, and then I think about the players they almost got this offseason. They almost got Ben Johnson, Drake May, and Brandon Ayuk. And I'm like, you just got the rebuild wrong, man. You got Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, Jaden Daniels, and like Luke McCaffrey.
We didn't even talk about their coaching staff, man.
And the worst teams in the league right now are the ones with new owners who don't know what they're doing. And that's what the Raiders have. That's what the Commanders have.
Yeah.
Like they have the Panthers have an owner that's too involved and they made the wrong choices. They picked the wrong guys. Like Denver has new owners and then they like trade for Sean Payton and I don't know. He's kind of checked out, I think, and they're picking Bo Nix. And it's like this franchise has new owners and like Harris is sitting in on the draft meetings, right? Like he might be meddling a little bit. And like these are the choices you made. These are the guys you came up with. Like I just think you could try again. Like maybe I shouldn't count Daniels out so fast, but I just think they got this rebuild a bit wrong this offseason.
I am counting Daniels out. Like if you won't, I will.
I will. I'll take a step back from that. Wasn't super high on Daniels. Don't love his odds. Wouldn't have been my pick. But even if he is your guy, I just don't think the situation as a rookie is quite good enough for me to think that this is going to be a good offense. I think he'll put up big numbers, and I think he'll have highlight plays. I think he's going to hit some cool throws from McLaurin. I think he's going to run like crazy. I don't see why that would go anywhere. The receivers are probably good enough for some highlights, and he likes to air it out down the sideline. Like I think that's going to be there for him. I do.
Yeah.
But I just question, like, is the run game going to be good? I just think so many of their signings, it's like I can kind of get wanting some vets to start off the rebuild. And none of the contracts are so long-term crazy where I'm like, ooh, Eckler. I don't think that like ruins the team long-term. You gave him 2 years, like 12 million, 2 years, like 8 million. But like, if he's the guy getting snaps, like I think it's going to be like, I don't think he's a valuable runner. Like, I don't think that's going to be great. And then as a receiving weapon, like with a quarterback who loves to take off himself, I don't think that he's going to be used as much. But maybe he's a safety valve. Maybe that's not a terrible idea. Ertz is like kind of getting up there. Like we talked about like Wagner and it's like his limitations. I just think a lot of these signings either didn't fill the holes that they have or are vets who are veterans but are super limited, and I just don't think that's going to translate to them winning a bunch of games, not year one, although I don't think that's what like doomed them, and I doubt they would have been able to go like make signings where I'm like, oh, perfect, I'm like, oh, okay, great. They're probably not going to happen. And if you're high on their rookies, that's if you're high on their rookies, then you can probably still get excited about this team long term. But I'm not seeing it unit by unit here. And I agree, like a lot of the decisions they made, not the ones that I would have made.
Yeah, it just wasn't as optimal as it could have been. I still think I'm going to put them number 3. and the Giants number 4. I think
the
even though it's kind
highlights
of
are gonna...
I think it's kind of a random assortment, but I do like Jaden more than Daniel Jones. I don't know. So
I think so for sure.
We'll go with that.
That's fair.
And we'll see what he's like.
I guess the highlights of Washington could out.
Yeah, because
they could have a ton of explosive plays. Like Kingsbury's a guy, like he's not afraid to dial up the slot fade that Jaden Daniels loves to throw, right? So maybe like we know McLaurin is fast, tracks the ball super well. Like maybe that connection, like, is a better connection than like Daniel Jones to Neighbors. I don't know. Their run game, they've got probably a better roster of running backs and a better offensive line than the Giants, which isn't saying much.
That's about as low of a bar as it gets. But
I don't know. I see your vision for sure. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to stick with the Giants.
So am
I still I'm not sure about Kingsbury and all them.
He might just, or maybe it's just like, Jaden, go scramble, like treating him like he's Kyler Murray or something, and he's not, and he just gets killed, and it looks exactly like Howell last year. That's the other case scenario. Is he's just like, drop back.
I don't know if it's gonna look exact like Howell's. What happened to Howell was insane.
Well, we have to talk about this. I feel like you cannot bring up Washington without bringing up the fact that, like, what is Daniels going to look like exactly next year in terms of like how much he's running and how he's running. Is he going to just run like crazy, but he's going to be aggressive sliding? Is he going to run like crazy like he did at LSU, where he does not ever slide and takes like Looney Tunes hits all the time? And if that's the case, I mean, like, is he going to survive at an NFL level? I mean, he takes crazier hits than legitimately any other quarterback I have ever seen. I don't like that is not an exaggeration at all.
It's not an exaggeration.
I mean, he is hurtling like up the middle, and Daniels is like not that big. That's the thing. Here's what I'll say. The only guys who I can think who comp to him are like dudes who are like Cam Newton.
Mm-hmm.
Or like Josh Allen has taken some big hits, but even both of those guys at some point started the site sliding, and Cam, I mean, had like 30, 40 pounds on Daniels. It's a completely different thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I honestly think that's like the thing to watch this year with them. I'm really interested to see how that plays out. I mean, not just how good Daniels is, but specifically how that aspect of his game translates to the NFL, because we haven't really ever seen anything like it.
Yeah, I think best case scenario, it almost looks like Richardson on the Colts last year, where Richardson may not have had the overall consistency, and maybe Daniels could. He certainly has more experience
exactly
coming in.
But what I'm thinking.
But like when Richardson was in, they were the most explosive offense. He was the most explosive quarterback because of his legs and because of the deep balls that he was able to hit. And if Jaden comes in there, maybe he'll be able to just hit big plays at that kind of rate. And maybe, I mean, he's the second overall pick. He went ahead of May, like, in all these great quarterbacks. Like, maybe he adds that and the consistency and wins like Rookie of the Year or something like that. But if Kingsbury is going to have him drop back and like kind of give him the freedom to make plays like he has for Williams and Kyler and Mahomes and Manziel, like, I really don't think that Daniels is quite that type of player. Like, yes, he's good at running around, but he's not someone who's good at running around and throwing. He's good at running around and like running. I feel like if you really want to maximize Daniels, it may have to be with a more structured coach than Kingsbury is. And the concern would be, okay, it doesn't look like Anthony Richardson, where it was kind of controlled chaos, or chaos with enough big plays that it's okay. It could just look like Washington last year with Sam Howell, who he had a really nice deep ball coming out of school. He could run around, but he took a ton of sacks.
Well, Anthony Richardson is also like 21, whereas Daniels is very old. Richardson was very young. And last year was like, I know he didn't play it out, but was like a developing year for Richardson. I mean, that was the whole idea. I do think that, like, while I'm not a Daniels franchise quarterback guy necessarily, I do think that he's going to hit big plays. And I don't think he's going to be like a Zach Wilson type bust if he doesn't work out. I think he's going to like be okay.
That's fair.
Maybe Jalen
he's
Hurts
not
is a
Zach
better
Wilson.
like ceiling when you think of all the 9 balls that he hits and like the rushing threat that he
It's
is.
not crazy.
Like,
But I just don't think, I
Maybe.
think what makes Hurts so valuable is that he's such a powerful, like he's a red zone threat, short yardage threat quarterback, and that is super valuable. Daniels is it's just like on such a different spectrum, it's almost hard to imagine as a runner.
yeah. But as
I
a
can-
passer,
even
it's
the
the
same-
deep ball specific. The go ball up the sideline is like such his specialty. Like I saw it a million times at ASU,
It
and I feel
is.
like that's the Eagles thing too. Like they've got
But
you know,
it's
Brown and
weird.
Smith,
So
and they
like,
just throw the go ball over and over again. Like Daniels could
My-
do that maybe if McLaurin takes a leap.
it's just like, I don't know. I think about like all these quarterbacks that we're talking about, like comparing him to, and he's just so much smaller than all of them, right? Like the thing with Jalen Hurts is like the player that you have to bring into the box to account for Jalen Hurts is a linebacker. Like it's like you can't bring a safety to account for Jalen Hurts. Jalen's gonna run him over. You have
But
to bring
Daniels
a,
is like also kind of quicker than Jalen, probably, right?
Well, right.
right, but my point is like you can keep a coverage player on the field for Daniels, even if it's someone to account for Daniels, it's still someone that's like quick enough to stay in coverage. But like, I don't know. My main issue is going to be just if he plays how he did at LSU, I don't think he's going to have the success. He had all day to throw at LSU. He is not going to have that kind of time in Washington. If they want to run those deep balls, fine. He's got to get the ball out quicker. He has
Right.
to.
I think Daniel's flaws are going to be like necessarily like throwing everywhere on the field, and I think he's going to take a lot of sacks.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And I think those are the things that will probably stop him from being like a true franchise guy. But I do believe like his ability to hit highlight runs not going anywhere, and his like accuracy deep up the sideline like is valuable. I know it's like an overrated type of throw, you like to say, Theo, but when you hit them, like they're still worth a whole hell of a lot of yards, and not everybody has that crazy accuracy. So I definitely like don't dislike Daniels the way that I dislike a lot of other young quarterbacks, and I could see him hitting some exciting plays. And as a rookie, I think him like showing those flashes will probably be enough for people to have like hope for him, and rightfully so. I'm not trying to sit here and say you should give up, Washington fans, or anything, and he can always develop. But I guess we've turned this into a whole Daniels thing. I do see like thinking that they could hit enough big plays to be better than like a Giants level team.
Yeah, I guess if that's the floor that we're establishing, is like, can they, win a few more? Can they win like a game more than the Giants just by like sheer will of big plays? Like if they beat the Giants twice, right? Would that be enough? Probably. But man, I really worry about what's gonna happen when Jaden Daniels has more pressure in his face than he did at LSU. Because what we notice is when he was facing pressure then, his eyes drop and he's trying to run, right? And I worry that that's what we're going to see in the NFL. It just didn't happen as much at LSU. That's the only thing. But
one thing I'm thinking as I'm looking at this roster before we move on,
yeah,
Jamin Davis is either going to have a Defensive Player of the Year season or the worst season ever. Luvu and Wagner
oh my God,
are going to be going downhill every play, and he's going to have to cover a historic amount of ground as a coverage player.
Dude, I mean, this is what I'm saying, bro. They've just got like interesting storyline guys at every single position somehow. It's like dude, their linebacker room is Bobby Wagner, Frankie Luvu, and Jamin Davis, and then like Forbes is right. It's like quarterback one, who's like the lightest quarter in the NFL. Jeremy Chin is like projected to start. Dude, it's awesome, man.
I'm excited to see Sanders still in the slot. He was a nice player for Michigan.
Oh, right. That's the thing. I kind of I liked him and I liked Newton. I thought those are two really good picks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Newton pick is just so weird because they already have two really good defensive tackles. But
they had my favorite. They had my favorite type of draft class in the sense that it's just a huge class. Those I think are always going to end up looking the best because you just get the most
The
players.
Rams last year looked great.
On average, teams that make more picks get more good players.
This is what I'm saying. A lot of people do not understand this concept, but it is true.
But genuinely and honestly, I see what you mean. I mean, like when we talk about like what draft picks you like or don't like, it's like we're guessing. Everybody is guessing. Mm-hmm. So having more guesses is always good. Like Luke McCaffrey, like, maybe he turns out to be, and if he is, like the receivers are honestly like pretty good, I didn't watch a ton of him.
If Luke McCaffrey or, Dax Milne has a really big year.
They got Zacchaeus, the king of the wide receiver threes.
Oh,
if McCaffrey can't cut it. So I'm not a big Dotson fan, though, which kind of limits me. I don't know. I think that these two teams, the Giants and the Commanders, I mean, the ceilings are almost uninteresting to talk about. I just can't see either of these guys in the playoffs. But
if it wasn't for Jaden Daniels, I really would not be interested. And either like both these teams would really, really lack interest for me. But I want to see how Daniels is. I think he's super
Jaden intrigues me more than Jones, but Dable intrigues me more than like Kingsbury, where it's like I don't even know.
Daniels Daniels really is not in a great situation. That's outside of McLaurin. I think McLaurin could just be like the guy.
But I'm sorry, I actually don't care at all who the offensive coordinator is, dude. How is the running going to play out is like one of my biggest questions for this season, dude. He's got like something has to happen there. Mm-hmm. What are the options are like he just magically turns into like a slide always guy.
I mean, we're gonna know pretty quick.
Or he just gets clobbered and it's like, yeah, dude, it's at the NFL level, and like he gets hurt really quickly, or he just continues to run like he did at LSU, which was like hilarious probably 40% of the time. Like something insane would happen like every single quarter.
His preseason performances are about to be
my God.
Oh my.
I'm hyped for the first Washington Commanders preseason game. Unbelievably hyped.
Let's see, who do they play in the preseason? That's the question.
I don't care who they
at Jets, at Dolphins versus Patriots. If any of our fans are going to those games, send us your synopsis of it.
Well, we will be watching.
We've got TVs.
Yeah, but like I want to see. I want to see the live. I want the live.
A mailbag. Tell us what happened at the game.
It's different when you see it in person. Like
you don't get
Theo wasn't seeing Justin Herbert a different experience for you in person.
It was.
Yeah, exactly.
He's so tall and strong in person.
Justin Herbert performance on primetime getting compared to Washington Commanders preseason games. Yep.
This is. How about that Euro final?
I only watched like the last 20 or so minutes, by the way. I was kind of disappointed because my Spanish roommate went somewhere to watch it. So I didn't get to hear him yelling in his room about it.
Really?
What did you think?
Well, I thought it was a good game. It was a great second half. You saw the good part of it. So that's good. And I think that Spain has a very promising young core with their kid who just turned 17 yesterday. He's crazy.
Oh my God.
One of the best players on the field, if not the best player on the field. He could have finished a little better today. He had some pretty easy saves on some great chances, but him and Nico Williams are like a crazy young duo to have at 22 and 17. I don't know how to say Yamal's first name. Lamine. I wasn't really.
I can't. I was trying to work out when a player would do something good. I was trying to how you do he's a Panther. I was gonna do he's an American, but then it doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't translate the same way. So I gave up on that. But yeah, I thought the corner where there was multiple headers, back and forth. I thought that was very cool. I'm not a huge soccer guy, but I'd flip it on.
I was not watching, I fear. I'm sorry.
Pickford, he was insane in goal, I thought. Palmer, that shot from outside the box, that was beautiful. I mean, I don't have too much to say about the tactics. You can tell that Southgate's a big conservative, the British coach. Like they just don't really go for it on either end. Like they just kind of want to sit back, and then there's like these bursts, like Pickford rolls it out, and then they like make 3 passes, and then there's like a great shot to finish, and it takes like 5 seconds. So there's like kind of these bursts of individual brilliance, but like he's just kind of, these England games have been like they survive, and then like Saka like hits this crazy shot. It's like a 1-0 and they win. So it was good to see a more creative team.
1-0. Man.
1-0. You don't understand.
I don't understand. Like, I'm not going to pretend to understand.
There's no commercials. It's 1-0, but it is constant action. There is no commercials in soccer. Like, I can't, the 1-0 thing, it's 100% canceled out by.
There's no commercials?
No. You turn on the game and then it goes until halftime.
That's
Blaiden,
crazy.
have you like never ever watched a soccer
I've
game?
never watched soccer on TV. I've seen it. I think I was at like McDonald's once, and there was like soccer.
So there's only been one time that it's even been like on in the background. I thought you were gonna say like I've seen it in person. You like witnessed it on the screen one time in your life at McDonald's. Yeah. There's no ads, bro. It's pretty sweet, and like they're going to go score. Like they get the ball,
Matt's
and then it's
looking
like a
at me
drive.
like I'm completely.
You've never seen a soccer game. It's just
Come on,
nuts, man. Like that is crazy. Here's what the low scoring thing. It just makes like the flip side is that it makes every score matter more. So it does even itself out. Like a goal is crazy, and I can understand like what I think is a fair complaint. Like there's a lot of ties. And like when they allow ties and they don't go to it, it's a lot of draws.
Mr. Tie.
But here's the thing: the reason why, and I've had someone tweet that at me before. I remember very specifically. The reason why an NFL tie is so funny is because it never happens. It happens one time a year,
and everybody gets mad.
It kills every time, and then people freak out mad because like Washington and Arizona tied, and now we don't get to see who really honorably wins. Like, who gives a shit, man? Like that's like you'll look back 5 years later at some teams, you'll be like, the only interesting thing about them was the fact that they had a tie that year.
Remember when the Panthers made the playoffs, going 7-8-1?
Yes, I do. I remember that. I remember that game specifically well. They tied the Bengals. And I was pissed that game. And I was like, the Bengals drove down the field. And I was just so mad. And then they just missed the field goal. And it was a tie. And that was it. And I was like, okay, cool. And I've loved ties ever since.
And if they had made that field goal, you would have missed the playoffs.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
I think maybe. I don't know.
I think
I'm changing the subject here. Imagine Rocket League, but with people. Right? They're trying to get it. They're trying to get it to the sideline. They have
Matt,
wingers.
didn't we win a Rocket League game like 8-3?
It's like that can happen in soccer too. You're trying to get it to the sideline and take it up the wings, and then you cross it in the middle, and then you've got people there to score, and it's like that. But in Rocket League is the exact same. Or if you're really good, you can just dribble through everybody. And,
I just haven't
watch that.
gotten. I just never got invested into soccer. Like I played it for a couple of years as a kid, but I didn't like it then, so I just never got into it.
It's a banger sport.
Describing soccer as like Rocket League with people is crazy.
He's like, oh, it's 1-0. It's 2-1.
No,
I guess Rocket League does it in 5 minutes, but the sequences are the same. Like, you try to beat the guy in front of you? They cross it into the box. People are making runs and they're trying to head it in. We need Leggett playing soccer. That was my take from watching the Euros. Is like some of these jump ball receivers.
You said Xavier Leggett needs to be playing soccer.
Get him in the box. You know how many times they cross it into a box in an average soccer game, and the guy in the middle just whiffs everything or bounce. Get some 6'4" American wide receiver leaping ability, and he will school all of these dudes in the box.
AJ Brown and Justin Jefferson.
Dude,
I would love to see America if soccer was for one sport. I think that would be so interesting to see all of the Would it be all of the same guys we know now, just as soccer players, or would it be like completely different people? Who knows?
Can we get like a
Calvin
Disney
Johnson
Plus
would get
what
like a
if?
handle, like he would get a dribble, and it would just be like over for everyone. I'm convinced.
Imagine like Tyreek Hill, like. Oh,
But I also do get like people not from America rolling their eyes when they hear that. If we cared about soccer, we'd be the best at it. It's like, you know, okay.
But like we would, like
we'd be better.
We would be.
a little bit better. Like if we had our best guys playing soccer, we would be more competitive in the World Cup.
My question is, do American soccer players get upset when they hear that? They're like, you don't think that we're the best?
Oh yeah.
Like,
of course.
Why wouldn't you? Yeah, we don't really want these guys. Like, these guys are good.
Like you're only
LeBron,
here.
like,
You're only here because LeBron decided he wanted to play basketball.
I love.
I would be slightly annoyed if I was. Yeah, go ahead.
You're only here because Myles Garrett decided he would rather put his hand in the dirt.
Yeah, I like the take that if it was LeBron playing soccer, we'd probably win every time.
But if it was Michael Jordan, we wouldn't.
Facts.
Well, I think that does it for another episode of Stay Hot. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We went a little off the rails there at the end, but you know, what's a Stay Hot episode if we don't do that? Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be back with by the time this comes out, college football will be here, like the video game. So
I'm thinking about not playing it for a day, just acting nonchalant, letting everybody else freak out, and then logging on like it's no big deal.
Not everything needs a reaction, you know.
Just I don't even really care that much.
Yeah,
it's everybody else. It's just I'll be on it. What time this Mountain does it even come out?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm assuming you're going first rebuild Arizona State, right?
I'm gonna probably have a couple of franchises. I think maybe I'll do a solo one and try to make TikTok content out of ASU though.
Yeah. I think I will probably not do a dynasty with Miami of Ohio, but I'm putting myself on Miami of Ohio.
That's also good. That's also good.
I like that. I'm also putting you on Miami of Ohio.
Well, are you going to play like a Road to Glory as me, or are you going to do a dynasty and create a recruit player?
No, I'm Road to Glory Blaiden Kirk.
So we're gonna see who does a better job as me.
I like that competition.
and then I'm doing Theo Ash at Arizona State after that, man.
Dude, you guys should both post TikTok content of you doing a Blaiden Kirk at Miami of Ohio run through. So someone will be scrolling through and they'll see you doing it, and then like they'll scroll a couple more and it'll be Matt's video.
Oh my god!
And then people who don't know will be like, "Wait, I just saw a video just like this." It'll bang.
Yeah, Blaiden, if you ever start making videos about your Blaiden Kirk receiver, maybe then I'll start making
just copy
one.
him. Yeah, copy him.
Just like a.
That's
anyway,
so true. I'm not making myself a 5-star though, like, because I
a humble king. Wow.
Yeah, man.
But you would have been, man.
No, I wouldn't have been. Like, trust. I was a sleeper. I was. You know those like 3-star versus 5-star videos on TikTok? Dude's been doing like 112 episodes.
Yes,
it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be like that. Yeah, man, we're cooking. But that's neither here or there. We'll be back with some more content coming your way. Everyone wish Matt the best of luck in moving. He has to move this week. So hopefully he's able to get set up for the next podcast episode. But if not, we'll just assume that he figures it out. I don't know. But until then, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you on the flippity flop.